Welcome to Beyond the Spot. I'm Melissa Thornley, and today we have with us John Claxton, writer-in-residence at FCB. Hi, John.
Melissa?
I want to kind of start at the beginning and find out what's the first piece of writing you ever remember writing?
I do remember some things I wrote in grade school, which are not terribly good or interesting. But when I was 8 years old, I distinctly remember that making the decision that I was going to be a writer.
How did you know at 8?
I'm not sure how. I remember when. I was taking a walk to my grandmother's house, and I just had this feeling with great clarity that when I grew up, I was going to be a writer. And I'm not sure which came first, the premonition or the desire to be a writer, but I stuck with it.
So between the time that you were 8 and now, what has evolved your writing skills?
I think a lot of repetition, a lot of routine, but mostly reading and being around people who pushed me to write better. There's a direct correlation between how much you read and how good your writing is. I truly believe that.
And what's your process for writing?
I get up around midnight and write for about 2 hours. And on a good day, that really is a wonderful thing, because that time of night, you've already left some of the baggage behind you at work and that kind of thing. So your mind is pretty clear, and there's not a whole lot of interference at midnight, between midnight and 2 in the morning. But then I usually go back to bed from 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. And the second time I get up, I read a poem, and then a couple hours later go to work, and when I come home, start the process again. So it's a day focused on writing, and it's a routine that I follow pretty much 7 days a week.
Well, I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about how she doesn't sit down and write. She sits down and she types, and she starts typing until she's writing.
Yeah, on the days where it's not happening, I just start to write, and usually pencil on paper on those kind of days. And there's something about the physical act of writing words on paper that sometimes jogs something loose. It sometimes helps you think. And just that process sometimes helps. So.
What inspired you to start Clark Street Bridge?
It was actually an assignment from our chief creative officer at the time, Tom O'Keefe. He suggested that I do a writing workshop for younger folks coming into the shop, and I told him that I hated writing workshops, and so Tom's suggestion, as only Tom could say, was, well, perhaps you should write one that you like then. So I wrote one that I thought was interesting, and we wanted to have it off-site because that seemed to make the most sense. So we looked at the Newberry Library, was one of the first locations we looked at, up on one of the top floors. And in the space was this great old piano. And we just thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did a writing workshop that had live music? And so that was kind of the start. I rewrote it and put the music into it.
So what would you say the mission of Clark Street Bridge is?
It's a way to inspire people. There's a lot of ways to be disappointed in what's happening in the world and to just be disillusioned. But if we can provide 90 minutes of inspiration that changes people's lives in even a small way, I think that's worthwhile.
You're performer, you're secret performer.
Yeah, we're all kind of closet performers, I think, in some way or another. And I used to be pretty petrified of being in front of people. And there was a moment in time where I went from being nervous to being to really enjoying the moment. And I remember saying to myself, I think I like this, you know, instead of being terrified of 150 people hanging on every word. Suddenly I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So I do enjoy it.
What venues, like if you could pick your sweet, like your sweet spots for audiences, what audiences would you target?
Not only do I have specific audiences, I have specific places I'd like to do. Rockefeller Chapel on the University of Chicago campus. I would love to do one there. It seats a lot of people, so we'd have to fill it to make it sound right, but it is an amazing space on the inside. And there's something incredibly spiritual about the place, even before you say the first word. So that, would be on my dream list of places to perform.
Some of the places that I had in my mind: Folsom Prison, if it still exists, or Alcatraz. No, Alcatraz isn't. But
it's still a place,
but it's still a place. You could do it could be real performance art at Alcatraz, right?
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The UN.
I'd love to do the UN.
The UN, I think, could be really cool.
Yeah.
And then, barring safety issues, like doing it in the Middle East or doing it, I just feel like it's not just an inspiring piece. It's inspiring because it reconnects you to humanity and the world in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great way to talk about it, reconnecting you with humanity. And those venues you mentioned are awesome. I mean, to do something in the Middle East would be phenomenal. So I'll put that on the list as well.
Good.
Yeah.
So who are writers that are inspiring you today? Or not necessarily writers, but artists, musicians?
Yeah, my taste is really eclectic. In terms of reading, I mostly read poetry, probably about 90% poetry, and then about 10% is science essays. So it's an odd combination of things. But on any given day, I'm reading a lot of contemporary American poets, Billy Collins, Jane Hirshfield, and a lot of those folks who have been here at the Poetry Foundation. So I've been able to meet them and hear them read. So that's great. And musically, my taste there is really eclectic as well. I listen to a lot of classical music, but I also love Neil Young and Tom Waits, and I love things that are lyric-driven with a great storyline. So there's not much music I don't like, although I don't quite have an ear for polka, but I'm working on that.
You don't need the ear, you just need the feet.
That's what I'm told, yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that you write differently for advertising than you do for yourself, or are there similarities?
It's pretty similar. I mean, I kind of do one thing with just slight variations. I mean, what I write for Clark Street Bridge is pretty much my voice, and I modify that slightly for advertising, but not much. Like I said, I just learned to write 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Well,
So,
I was just thinking that. What happened 2 years ago that made you realize, I know how to write now?
yeah, I think it was Clark Street Bridge, because there's something about writing and then knowing that the people who are going to read that are a long way away or on the other end of a broadcast, or they're people you don't see, as opposed to Clark Street Bridge where they're standing just a few feet from you. And the first few times I did that, it's kind of like walking down Michigan Avenue in your pajamas. It's like suddenly everyone knows who you are. But having gone through that experience a couple times, you realize that if people respond to it in a positive way, your voice must be okay.
How much time do you spend on Clark Street Bridge versus other, what's typical? What's a typical day for John Claxton?
Yeah, a day at work is pretty much all meetings about clients and work that's going on at work. I do get to put like an hour or two each day into the mechanics of what are required to make it happen. But that's the only part of Clark Street Bridge I do at work, is really the mechanics of it, and all the writing is done at home.
Now, where do you come up with the themes?
I write a number of chapters, literally just randomly, and then start to look for points that connect them. So I don't write to a theme. I write to perfect each chapter. Through those chapters, try to find ones that are related in some fashion, and if I can pull together a theme from there, then I'll rewrite the chapters and make sure that they all lead to that same idea. I have hundreds of chapters written, because they're fun to write, because they're short, like 5 to 6, 7 minutes. And if you can find an interesting jumping off point, they're delightful to write.
So what do you want more of?
That's a great question. More life, more time. I think more performances. It's hard to find the time and the funding to take us out on the road. We're a big band. It's like 8 of us all together with lots of stuff to ship and haul. So it's an ordeal to get us from Chicago to the suburbs, let alone Chicago to Boston.
Okay, so now it's the 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, where are you from?
I literally grew up in a little town south of Chicago called Madison, which is close to Chicago Heights and Park Forest. But I've lived in and around Chicago most of my life. Lived in a few other cities, Dallas and St. Louis, and went to school in Indianapolis, but Chicago's home. And I do love Chicago deeply. It's more, for me, it's more than just a place to live. It inspires me. It's part of what I write about. It's one of those things I love in life, is this city.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah. I'm so proud to say I'm from Chicago.
So the second question is, where are you going?
I think I'm going to the place, wherever it is, that aging poets go to. And hopefully that's a good place. Something about poets and poetry that makes their place in the world seem incredibly important and at the same time so easy to overlook.
That sounds like an awesome place. Last question is, what keeps you going?
In one word, love keeps me going. Love of words and love of people. There's something magical about relating to people through words. It's kind of what I've dedicated my life to. And it's hard for me to imagine doing anything else. It's pretty much the only thing I'm good at, so I should probably stick with that. Huh?
Yeah, don't quit your day job.
Right.
Everybody needs you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, John.
My pleasure.